Hi there, thank you for joining me today. My name's Faye. I've been a teacher for 20 years, teaching all year groups from reception up to year 6. I've been a content writer with Twinkl now for nearly 4 years, specialising in PSHE, relationships and sex education, mental health and wellbeing, and making LGBTQ+ content. I also have 2 children of my own, aged 11 and 17. So what's the purpose of today's session? Well, in this session, we'll be talking about what LGBT History Month is, why it's so important to teach children all about it, how we can teach primary age children about the event and the LGBTQ+ community, and really importantly, how we can deliver learning linked to LGBT History Month during lockdown, as that's going to prove a little bit more of a challenge perhaps than if the children were all in school. So let's firstly think about what is LGBT History Month. Well, this event takes place every year in the UK during February, and the aim of LGBT History Month is to create awareness of the community of LGBTQ+ people, to celebrate diversity. It's also to celebrate the achievements of individuals and groups within the LGBTQ+ community, whether those achievements are linked to overcoming prejudice or perhaps they're achievements unrelated to being LGBTQ+, but perhaps have otherwise been overlooked or not celebrated. So let's think about this year's theme for LGBT History Month. This year's theme is body, mind and spirit. This is perhaps a slightly abstract theme to think about with the younger children, but it's still really easy to look at and really important to teach. So you could, if you're wanting to stick to the theme, you could learn about some LGBT sports people, such as Nicola Adams. That would be a great link to the body part of the theme. You could, for the mind aspect, look at a literary figure from the LGBT community, such as Maya Angelou. And then for the spirit aspect, you could either kind of look at LGBT activists or groups such as Stonewall and the spirit and passion with which they fight for the rights of the community. Or you could choose to look more at the symbols that represent the LGBT community, and that's another good way to cover the spirit theme. So before we look more at how we can teach it, I'd really like to address why it's so important to teach about it. There are so many reasons, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted. So firstly, let's think about the statutory relationships curriculum, a hot topic at the moment. And the statutory curriculum guidance states that children should be learning about different families and different relationships. So straight away, there's a really good reason to cover it because we have to. Secondly, tolerance, acceptance and respect for others, including those who are different from ourselves or whose beliefs and opinions or lifestyles are different from ourselves. They're key aspects of both character education, which many schools are obviously highlighting as a key priority, and they're also aspects of the British values, which are taught in Britain's schools. Ofsted are going to be looking for those. They're really important. Thirdly, let's talk about inclusivity and representation. Just to get some perspective on the size of the LGBTQ+ community, in a 2018 study, there were an estimated 1.2 million LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual people aged 16 years and over. That's not including anyone who identifies as transgender. And at the time of that report in 2018, the number of people identifying as lesbian, gay or bisexual in the UK had increased by more than a third in 4 years. So we're looking at that figure and thinking, why wouldn't we be representing this number of people in our lessons, through our education system, through our curriculum and through the teaching resources we use? Okay, fourth on my list of reasons is linked to a 2019 UK government report. And this reason why we should be covering events like this and teaching about the LGBTQ+ community relates to some statistics that really saddened me when I read them. So in this report, LGBT respondents stated they were less satisfied with their life than the general UK population. More than 2/3 of LGBT respondents said they had avoided holding hands with a same-sex partner for fear of a negative reaction from others. And at least 2 in 5 of those LGBT respondents had experienced an incident because they were LGBT, such as verbal harassment or physical violence in the last 12 months preceding the survey. However, more than 9 in 10 of the most serious incidents went unreported, often because respondents thought it happens all the time. As the report states, and I'm sure I don't need to tell you, none of this is acceptable. And I believe the key to change lies with education. So we can really be addressing those sorts of statistics and findings in reports and surveys and making a difference, making things better through education and starting at primary level. 5 on my list of reasons. Well, we learn from the past. It's why history is taught as a subject in schools. So by learning about LGBT history during this month or at any time during the school year, we can shine a light on the achievements made by members of the LGBT community, and we can learn about the discrimination that's previously existed and sadly still does exist. So we can look at what's happened, what's been unfair, but what's been a success and how change has come about, and aim to make the future better and not repeat mistakes. So how can we use the curriculum to teach about LGBT History Month and the LGBT community in general? Well, it's good practice to teach children about significant events like this, but ideally we don't want to only focus on those once, maybe twice a year in the school curriculum. It's really important to weave LGBT plus awareness into the everyday. And that means representing the LGBT community through all areas of the curriculum as best we can. So just consider, I guess, as a teacher, as a parent, things like, is a same-sex couple mentioned in a storybook that the class is sharing or that you're sharing with your child? Is an LGBT figure included in the artists being studied as part of the art curriculum or a topic you're looking at? So it's just trying to weave it in and get a balance and get that representation throughout the curriculum. Next, I'd like to consider how we tailor the learning for primary age groups. Now, in my opinion, children can be introduced to terminology and concepts from a young age, and I have worked with children as young as reception. We know that in other areas of the curriculum, we're introducing them to really tricky terminology. Look at the phonics and the literacy curriculum. They're never too young to understand those. Children of any age may themselves have LGBT family members or have friends or classmates with LGBT family members. So I don't really think it's ever too early to be talking about different families and relationships. Obviously, we want to tailor the learning and the answers we give to children to questions they ask to make them age appropriate, but I don't think shying away from that is really the way forward. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the Twinkl resources. Now, they're written by experienced teachers, then they're checked by experienced editors, and we're always ensuring that they are age appropriate, meeting the needs of the children they will be used with. They always follow government guidance. If there are lesson packs, then they're going to be meeting statutory objectives or objectives taken from the PSHE Association. So they're going to be relevant not only to the subject matter, but to the age group. So please be confident in any resources you're using from the Twinkl site that they are appropriate for the age group you're working with. And then Twinkl Life's lesson packs I'd like to mention in particular. They can be found in the Twinkl Life event resources section of the product. They stipulate which age group they're best suited to. So Key Stage 1, Lower Key Stage 2 or Upper Key Stage 2. And again, we've really tried to ensure that you can feel super confident using those with the children that you work with. Or if it's at home as well, you'll know they're appropriate for your child and the age they're working at. So how can we teach about LGBT History Month during lockdown? Okay, it's a little bit different. Perhaps when all schools are running as normal, many schools will choose to have a focus week during the month. They might have some whole school assemblies. They might tailor their PSHE lessons during that month to suit LGBTQ plus content and representing people from the community. They might have a general theme, displays around school. So it's a little bit different now. Well, we can still teach about it, and I urge you, please still cover this. So teachers, you can incorporate the event in your PSHE curriculum. You can deliver live lessons or set some home learning tasks linked to LGBT History Month itself. Or you could be using resources during the month just to focus on the LGBTQ plus community. You can use the Twinkl resources. We have got assemblies that could be delivered as a home learning, an online event. And we've also got plenty of resources that could be used if you're doing it through a PSHE lesson. We also have complete lesson packs on site. So you've got the presentation you could share, again, online. You've got a lesson plan that you can follow as a teacher, or as a parent, you could still teach that as a lesson at home. And those packs we've got on site, again, in our event resources in Twinkl Life. Some of those specifically focus on addressing areas like prejudice, celebrating uniqueness, different families and relationships, gender stereotypes, and gender or LGBT related negative language and how to tackle that. Parents, you might like to work with your children, or carers, at home. You can work with children and research some inspirational LGBTQ plus people, modern or from the past. This could include sports people, actors, singers, scientists, authors, artists, helping children answer their questions, looking at the lives of those people, their achievements, their successes, and if it's relevant, where it's relevant, looking at them as an LGBTQ plus person and perhaps any prejudice they've had to experience and how they've addressed that. Families, you can learn at home together about different families. So looking at your own family and other types of family. With young children, a really lovely resource on the Twinkl website to use is the Twinkl Originals story, Part of the Party. That's an ebook. And then maybe older children, you might like to use a lesson pack like How Different Can Two Mums Be? Again, that's in the Twinkl Life event resources. That's great for Key Stage 2 children. You could also link LGBT History Month activities to arts and crafts. Lots of people perhaps during home learning doing a little bit more of those sorts of practical activities. So you could get designing flags or t-shirts or badges. You could look at the badges that have been created by artists for each year's LGBT History Month, and the children could create their own one. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope that it's been helpful in highlighting why teaching about LGBT History Month is important. I hope I've given you some tips and some ideas for resources you can use, and I hope I've given you more confidence in knowing how to teach it, whether that's with your class or whether that's with your own children. Please don't shy away from it. Please have a go. Please do it and make a difference, make a positive difference. Thank you again. Bye for now.